If you are new to our channel, please subscribe and hit the bell icon for receiving latest updates on exams, research positions, and guidance videos. So let's start the video.
Go ahead and start it.
Yeah, and the screen is visible?
Yeah.
So, hi everyone, good evening. I'm presenting today the scanning thermal microscopy. This is the brief outline of my talk. We'll first discuss about something history, the introduction part, then the instrumentation, and then the mechanism of heat transfer, then what are the applications of the scanning thermal microscopy, and the existing problem and their possible solutions. So this is the history. In the year of 1986, the AFM first developed by Professor Binning and his group. Then in the year of 1992, Professor Kumar Wickramasinghe, he come up with the scanning thermocouple microscopy. Then in the year of 1993, one Indian mechanical engineer, Professor Arunabha Majumdar, come up with this scanning thermal microscopy with force feedback. Then other modification has also done, like Wollaston probe has developed by Bill Kipp in the year of 1994, and then the microfabricated thermocouple probe made by this Davis and Luo, and other improvement also. So we'll first go through this atomic force microscopy. As all of us know, what is this? It is a scanning probe microscopic technique, and it used for the nanoscale and microscale material for that. So it contains a probe, and it is the probe tip. This is the cantilever and a mirror attached with this cantilever, and there is a laser which reflected back to the photo detector, the position sensitive photo detector. And the sample holder is connected with the piezo sensitive system, which gives the signal to the computer. Then we'll go through this DSC and DTA technique. This is a well-known technique, and this is a thermoanalytical technique. And as you can see, we used our sample and reference. Reference generally we taken as air. There are two resistance are there, and this technique we can do it with two different way. Like we give the voltage same for the reference and the sample, and the temperature difference we can measure. Then there we can determine the thermoanalytical properties of the sample, and we can go for a same temperature for the sample and the reference, and to keep the temperature same, what voltage we have to apply. From there we can determine the properties. And remember one thing, this is for the bulk sample measurement. So if we come to the scanning thermal microscopy, this is a technique which we can go for the thermal property determination in the nanoscale level. So we can think of it is a combination of this AFM and the DSC-DTA technique, and it is also known as a nanoscale thermometer. Again, it is a scanning probe microscopic technique, and come up with the modified AFM device. And people generally perform this scanning thermal microscopy for thermo and optoelectronic devices, also for the characterization of the nanoscale multilayer interfaces, the heterojunction, nanoporous media, then 2D materials like graphene, CNT, and TMDs, and also to determine the grain boundaries. Now, this is the STHM instrument. As you can see, it is very much look like a AFM instrument. This is the probe. This is the cantilever, and here the mirror, laser, and the photo detector. This part is same, and the piezo sensitive system is connect with the cantilever. And here the electrical part is mostly this Wheatstone bridge. As we know, the Wheatstone bridge contains 4 resistance. One of the resistance is this one, that cantilever and the probe. So with changing the temperature of the sample, the resistance changes, and then that signal we can collect. There are generally 2 operation mode for this technique. One is active mode, and another was passive mode. In active mode, the probe itself acts as a heater, and the heat transfer from the probe to the sample. Now we can heat the probe by 2 methods, externally and internally. Externally, we do it by the laser light, and for internal heating, we use the Joule heating for the probe. And we can determine the different thermophysical property by this active mode. Whereas in the passive mode, the probe is act as a thermal, which you can say a temperature sensor, or the like that. And for this passive mode, the sample is heated by the Joule heating or the Peltier heating, and the heat transfer from the sample to the probe. So this is the basic difference between these 2 modes, and it can used for the determination of the topological study and the thermal image of the sample. So we'll mostly go through the probe, what types of probe are there, because most of the other things is look like same from the with the AFM. So there are different types of probe, and people do research on this type of probe mostly. So there are mainly 4 types of probe. One is thermoresistive probe, thermovoltage-based probe, bimetallic probe, and fluorescent particle-based probe. So as the name suggests, the thermoresistive probe, so the resistance changes with the temperature, and this is the main principle for this thermoresistive probe. And for the determination of the resistance, we can use DC or AC current, both. For the thermovoltage probe, it is as the name suggests, the thermoelectric effect is used to determination of the temperature or the properties of the sample. And this thermocouple is generally found between the probe tip and the sample surface. And as we can see, this is connected with the voltage. So we need the probe and the sample both as a contacting material. But again, the Professor Majumdar group come up with a new type of wire thermocouple based probe, which can use this which is a thermovoltage based probe, but it can use for the non-conducting sample also. For the bimetallic probe, as we know that thermal expansion of 2 different material is different, so that we can use for the bimetallic probe, and the fluorescence of any material is dependent on the temperature. So with difference, with increasing the temperature, their intensity increases, so that we can use for the fluorescence particle based probe. Now, this is the mostly used one, the Wollaston probe, and this is one type of thermoresistive probe. The wire, this wire you can see, this is made up with the platinum and rhodium, and it is come up with the ratio 90:10, and it coated with a silver cell. Then the extreme point, this extreme point is electrochemically etched to uncover that alloy, and the radius of this wire is around 5 micrometer. And this type of probe is generally used for the microsystem diagnosis and the local thermophysical characterization. Now coming to the doped silicon semiconductor probe. Yes. Okay. So this is first introduced by the IBM for the nanolithographic technique. And as you can see, this is English letter U type shape, and these 2 arm is the cantilever. And they are highly doped silicon. Generally, people use the N-type doping for this kind. And this is the probe and the tip. This is a lower doping area. And as you can see here, that tip is look like a pyramid, and the curvature radius is around 10 nanometer. And this is used for the data storage and the nanolithography. Then coming to the metallic probe. So palladium metal, first people use the palladium thin film, and it is deposited on the silicon oxide or silicon nitrate. The cantilever and the probe and the whole tip, and this whole thing is made up of the silicon oxide and the silicon nitrate. Then only the tip area, the palladium is deposited on this area. Again, people come up with the platinum and gold based this type of thin film, and that increases the resolution also. Now the thermovoltage based probe, this, as we told, that the thermoelectric junction is generally established between the tip and the sample. Then the miniaturization of this type of probe that leads to the improvement of the spatial resolution. If we make shorter the cantilever and the probe size, then it is good for our spatial resolution and the sensitivity also. Previously, these type of thermovoltage based probe is used for only the topographical image and to take the thermal image of a sample. But in that year of 2002, Professor Majumdar group come up with another type of probe that can characterize the sample in a quantitative way, because they have considered the conduction through the air. The conduction through the air from the sample to the tip, they come up with a mathematical equation and they determine it accurately. Then Chung and his group proposed the point-by-point temperature measurement. This is, they proposed the first tapping mode. As we know, that in the AFM there is 3 type of mode: contact mode, non-contact mode, and the tapping mode. So generally for the scanning thermal microscopy technique, people use the contact mode, but this group come up with the tapping mode first, and it improved the sensitivity also. So this type of probe now we can use for the quantitative and qualitative measurement, for the thermal conductivity measurement and the thermal imaging also. This is a bimetallic probe. Generally, it is made up. This part is made up with silicon, and this one is for by the aluminium. And and the difference of their difference in their thermal conductivity, because of this the cantilever bent as we know, the temperature coefficient of the difference material is different, so it can bend, and it is a very simple technique that we have to just monitor the displacement of the cantilever, and it is also having a very high spatial resolution because the cantilever length is around in the range of micrometer range, so it can it can determine even a small change also.
Hello, Tarak.
Hello, Tarak.
Yes.
So in the tip is made up of what element?
This also you can see. This also this part is silicon and this part is the aluminium.
Okay.
There you can see that small wear.
Hello, Tarak.
Yes.
I think I'm a bit confused. You said that due to the thermal conductivity is different, we can ultimately probe, but I think it will be the thermal expansion coefficient, not thermal conductivity.
Yeah, sorry. The thermal expansion coefficient of the two materials is different. Yes, okay. Yeah, thanks. So this is the fluorescent particle-based probe. The fluorescent particle is attached at the end of the tip, and as we know, the emitted intensity is proportional with the population of the excited state. And if we increase the temperature, the number of the particle at the excited state increases, so the fluorescence intensity also increases. So with increasing the temperature, fluorescence intensity increases. So by monitoring the intensity, we can deduce the temperature file of the sample. And generally, RBM-based fluorescent particle is used in this case. So these are all about the probe. And now this is the heat transfer mechanism, how the heat transfer from the sample to the tip or the other way. So there are mainly 4 pathways, like the tip sample contact, water meniscus, conduction through the air, and the thermal radiation. The first one is the tip sample contact. So this is the solid transfer. As you can see, this is the tip and the sample, and heat can transfer through direct conduction here. Water meniscus, as most of the time this scanning thermal microscopy has done in the ambient condition, and there are moisture also, so some liquid water has formed in the contact between the tip and the sample, and heat can transfer this from by that water also. Then the conduction through the air, as it is done by in an ambient condition, so air can act as a medium and it can conduct the heat. Even if we go for the ultra high vacuum, if there is no air, no water, no moisture, then also the heat can transfer from probe to the tip, probe tip to the sample, and that is due to the thermal radiation. And there is a problem because cantilever to sample heat conduction is also happen, which should not be there, but this is a problem. We shall counter it later in the slide. So in the application part, this scanning thermal microscopy is generally used for the thermal conductivity measurement, temperature measurement, and the thermal profiling. Then the characterization of the thermoelectric material. As we know, for the thermoelectric material, thermal conductivity is high. There is a high impact for this thermal conductivity. And then phase changing of the material at which temperature it changes. Then in the biomaterial and the polymer material. For the thermal conductivity measurement, generally people go for the 2D material, and the spatial resolution is really high, like we can achieve up to 50 nanometer, whereas for the micro-Raman spectroscopy it is around 1 micrometer. And if we people do with the device, electronic device, and as we know there for the nanoscale electronic device, there are channels which can conduct the electricity, and there are the insulator part also. So by measuring the thermal conductivity, we can determine that there is any fabrication error is there in or not. Then another group come up with they did this thermal conductivity measurement for the porous insulator also, and they conclude that with increasing the porosity, the thermal conductivity decreases. So if we want to make a good insulator, we can increase the porosity in the material. Then this can be done by a very simple technique. We have to just take a reference sample with known conductivity, and then we can just take the ratio of our sample and the reference. From there, we can calculate the thermal conductivity of our material. So this is a schematic how we can scan our sample. So this is the probe tip, and this pass the heat into the our sample. If the sample is look like something is as a pillar, and as you can see, it is not in the tapping mode. It is direct contact mode, and it goes like that.
Tarak,
Yes.
sample is like that shape. You have to make sample like that, or it's just schematic of sample.
No. I took it from a specific paper, so they have this type of sample. Like you can have your.
Taro,
Yes.
as you said it, I was thinking of talking later, but when you are picking some image, you just please refer that. Okay.
So for the thermal mapping, here also we can do it for the graphene and the transition metal dichalcogenides. These are generally the 2D material, and we can determine the heterojunction or the grain boundary defect of the single crystal with this thermal mapping. And again, for this scanning thermal microscopy, the thermal mapping or the thermal image having a very high spatial resolution, and it is having a high sensitivity also. Generally, for the thermal mapping, people use the Wollaston probe. That is the most used one, and we used it for the active mode. We can do the topological image through this scanning thermal microscopy also with the same scan. Now here you can see this one is the left one is the AFM image, AFM topographical image, and this one is taken by the scanning thermal microscopy. So here this black part is some dips, and as you can see here, you can consider it as some pillar, the light part. So here if we go for the topographical image, it is good to go with the AFM rather than the STHM. As you can see, the resolution is much better for the AFM than the scanning thermal microscopy. So we cannot achieve that much spatial resolution as like AFM. But if we have to go for a thermal image, so this is taken by the scanning thermal microscopy. This one is the topographical image, and this is the thermal image. So as you can see, for the thermal image, each and every point it can determine very in a better way. But for the topographical image, it looks like a same. Like from here, it cannot differentiate different range. So for the phase change properties, we can do it with both active and passive mode. And to do it, we have to first determine the thermal conductivity. And we have to, as we know that the thermal conductivity changes with the phase change of the material. So by doing that, we can determine at which temperature phase change takes place. Also the glass transition and the melting temperature we can determine. Sometimes people also couple the Raman thermometry with this to get the Raman signature, as some material contains some special signature in a single phase and some signature in the another phase. So from there we can conclude that when the phase change takes place. And some memory, as we know, the memory device contain the phase changing material, so it is very useful for those device characterization. For the polymer characterization, most of us know that the polymer comes as an insulator, but it is not true. Some chains with proper orientation are there in the local area. They might be not in a global, but they can possess the good thermal conductivity. And those small structure, microstructure, and that region can be characterized by this scanning thermal microscopy technique. Also, we can determine the melting temperature of each of the microstructure by the probe tip temperature, and by determining the probe tip temperature and the cantilever deflection. Again, if any metal nanoparticle deposited into the polymer matrix, those can also be characterized by this technique. So those are the application part. Now coming to the problem and the possible solution. So as we told that AC and DC, both mode we can use. So AC mode, there is some problem, like feedback loop comes and the thermoelastic bending of the probe, it can happen in AC mode. And for the DC mode, the signal to noise ratio is very low. So we can do one thing. We can combine the DC and AC mode. The DC mode will be the major portion, and there is a small contribution from the AC current. And what it can do, the DC mode, for the DC mode, the probe temperature does not increase it that much. So we can take care of the thermoelastic bending. And for the AC part, it can take care for the signal to noise ratio. It can increase the signal to noise ratio part. here for the thermal conductivity determination, as we told that we do it in the ambient condition. So some data they told that it is not correct. It's like they measured the thermal conductivity with other difference technique and it is not matching. So for this problem, we can go with the reference, where the reference we can take as a air. So we can measure the conductivity of the air, and that we can deduct from our data, and then it may be we reached mostly toward the accurate thermal conductivity of our sample. Now the sensitivity problem is also there for the thermoresistive probe. It can be lowered down by by lowering the resistance between the tip and the sample. So we can determine a small change in the temperature or a small resistance accurately. This is again for the ambient condition, spatial resolution is not good. And if we go for the ultra high vacuum, there the spatial resolution is not good again, because there is nothing to transport the heat. Only the radiation is take part to conduct the heat from the sample to the probe. So we can do one thing, we can optimize this condition by including some inert gas or the low thermal conducting gas. And for this, one have to do several set of experiment, and then we can reach to the optimum pressure, like what amount of pressure or which gas is we needed for the optimum condition. Again, as we told that cantilever always comes as nearer to the sample, so heat can transfer from sample to the cantilever, and that we cannot measure that one. So to solve this problem, one can do that. One can increase the distance between the cantilever and the sample by increasing the length of the tip. And again, we can do another thing, like we can use some anisotropic material. Like if we think this is the cantilever and this is the probe and this is our sample, so if there is any anisotropic material which can conduct the heat this way but not this way, so we can stop the heat transfer to sample to the cantilever, but it can conduct the heat through the probe. So now coming to the towards the new probe, IR technique we can use, and there is one group they use this technique for this scanning thermal microscopy, and they use IR source, and then the IR radiation scattered by the sample, and they collect this with the detector which is connected to the probe tip. So that will be a good way. And then people generally use the sharp tip for the scanning thermal microscopy, but we have seen that for the AFM, round tip is also available with a good resolution. So we can use that round tip for our scanning thermal microscopy technique. And if it not work, then we can go for a optimization experiment also. To get a better sensitivity, as the sensitivity problem is there also, so we can go with a 2 cantilever. So this is our cantilever and this is the single one. So if we go with the cantilever like V shape, and the probe will be at the end, at the extreme point of this is the probe. So if we introduce 2 cantilevers, then a small change we can determine. So maybe the sensitivity we will increase through this 2 cantilever method. So this is all about the scanning thermal microscopy. Thank you. And if you have a question, then I'm happy to answer it.
Okay, good. Thank you, Taraknath. So does anyone have any question? I'm sure a lot of people are waiting to ask questions.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tarak, can you please explain one more time the active mode? Because I have some questions. I think I have misread it.
Okay, this one. In the active mode, the probe itself acts as a heater. Like you pass the heat through the probe to the sample. And how to increase the temperature of the probe? So we can do it by externally or internally. By the laser light, we can heat the probe externally, and by the Joule heating, we can do it internally. This is the active mode.
Okay, but when the probe is itself the heater of the sample, probe is itself heating the sample, then how can you measure the change in heat of the sample?
No, like how much it captured the heat, what amount of heat the sample capture from the probe, and how much voltage changes or the resistance changes. From so there we can determine.
So basically you measure the reduction of heat of the probe, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. then I have another question. That is about that is I think a more fundamental question about the thermal imaging part. You said you just place your cantilever in one particular area, then you image the heat, then you drag the cantilever to its nearby area, then you image its heat also. But my question is, by doing this actually, as you are mainly as you said, mainly these things are mainly working in thin film type of materials. There is a high amount of in-plane heat conduction. So I think when you are imaging by this way, I think you should not get a proper result out of it, because you have to give some time to the material. And in this meantime, there is a lot of, because thin films, the thermal diffusion length is quite, here is a quite a major determining factor. But I think, so in this way, you just cannot get a proper image of actually what is happening. You cannot get. So I need a bit more clarification on that.
So for the thin film, I have not seen any paper from the thin film thermal image determination by this scanning thermal microscopy. As you know, that
there are a lot of papers out there.
I have not found, like, this is a very new technique. So yeah. I have to check that how it will work, and then I have to check that.
Fine, I'll also check it. So both ways. Okay, fine.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, there are definitely papers on micron size films. I mean, so thin is how thin, right? Yeah. I think I have seen micron size film. People have measured with scanning thermal microscopy, but yeah, I mean, less than a certain critical thickness, it could be a big issue. And obviously, this is not probably the best way of measuring thermal conductivity of thin films. This is not as accurate as TDTR, or there's one more technique, 3 omega method. But anyway, okay, good. Yeah. No, there's 3 omega method. There is one other method.
No, it's a frequency domain method, right?
Which one?
3 omega.
Yeah, so you pass an AC current, and then you look at the changes in the. You pass an AC current with omega frequency, and then you look at this voltage that is generated, or something like this. And the component that you look for is 3 omega.
There is a frequency tripling happens.
Yeah. Anyway, so does anyone else have any question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Taraknath?
Yes.
Nice talk. I have one question. In one of your slides, you mentioned that tapping mode are more sensitive than the contact mode, isn't it?
Sorry, I cannot hear you properly.
In one of your slides, you mentioned that tapping mode is more sensitive. You can increase the sensitivity by doing it in tapping mode.
Yeah, actually, they used the tapping mode first for scanning thermal microscopy, and they got a better result. Like it cannot be, it may not be applicable for all type of sample.
Because here you, in contact mode, you will be in the probe will be in contact with the sample all the time, so that you will get the uniformity in the temperature.
Yes.
But
yes.
In tapping mode, it may not be the case. I think sensitivity will decrease, isn't it?
Yeah, I also think that sensitivity also decreased, but they got a better resolution by that mode.
Okay. Anyone else?
Tarak?
Yes.
So you told them that in bioreactor materials, how it can be utilized, this system, this technique?
For the biomaterial technique, there, if you go through the term paper, there is another technique called immerse scanning thermal microscopy, and that's especially used for the liquid sample. So ISTHM is used for the biomaterial and for the cell.
What is that? Is it called inverse scanning thermal microscope?
That is immerse. That is immerse.
Oh,
yeah, for
okay.
that is especially for the liquid sample.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else?
Okay.
Okay. If not, let's thank Tarak for his nice presentation, and let's move to the next one.